to say happy Thanksgiving to those of you that are planning on celebrating Thanksgiving. The defeat of communism is how I like to describe it. So for those of you that are celebrating Thanksgiving this week, happy Thanksgiving to you, and I hope you eat so much that you get comatose and have a good nap. Because that's the best part of Thanksgiving. Like, I'm not a big fan of holidays, but when it comes to Thanksgiving, um, the best part of it is just eating and eating and eating until you can't eat no more, and then trying to figure out a way to grab one more plate because you spent the whole day not eating. Like, you only get to eat one meal, and so you eat everything that you're gonna eat for the whole entire day in one meal. I mean, oh, my mom and her deviled eggs and stuff like that. I wonder if you guys, what are some family recipes that you guys liked during Thanksgiving, for those of you that are celebrating it. For those of you that are not, I totally understand. Me, I'm not a big holiday person, but the people I'm around generally want me to um, they generally want me to celebrate with them. I'm supposed to be making my dip. So my mom's family recipe that she passed down to me is a garlic dip. It's real simple. I'll give it to you if you guys want to make it. You're gonna have to chill it, so make sure you make it the day before. But you take a beef bouillon cube, one of the big things of the 4% curd of the cottage cheese, and you take one garlic chunk, and you peel it, and you cut it up a little bit because it's going to chunk up, and you just frappe it until it becomes very creamy. But the thing is the flavor doesn't really set in until after it's been chilled, because it takes a moment for that to get in there. But if you really like it spicy, put a second garlic chunk in there, and yeah, it'll definitely be spicy. I had my sous chef friend that taught me some cooking, some things of the trade of like how to be a good cook, told me that this would be a great base for any type of either dip or dressing that you wanted to make. So if you want to experiment and try it out, you might want to. It's real simple. It's just all you need is a blender, a big jug of cottage cheese, the 4% a garlic chunk, and beef bouillon. So it's pretty simple. But anyways, um, all right, so let's get into today's topic. Sorry, guys, my mustache and my nose hairs are commingling with each other, so now it's tickling my nose. So I'm trying to get it untangled somehow. So if you keep seeing me do that, it's because, yeah, that's the problem of having a mustache and nose hairs. So but anyway, so you guys ever have an epiphany? Like, you're just sitting there and you're contemplating, you're thinking about things, and you're like, oh wow, now that totally makes sense. Well, I was watching an article, I don't know, a little while ago, and it just like something kind of clicked in me. I know that this probably is common knowledge for a lot of people, but for me, I really didn't think of the world this way. But the family is the microcosm within the macrocosm. So if you really want to see why our communities are unhealthy, why our cities are unhealthy, why our government is unhealthy, why our states are unhealthy, why our institutions are unhealthy, it all boils down to the family, because that is the replicated hierarchy that we put out throughout society, to be able to have some sort of leadership, because our society mimics what we've got in the family. And it's like it kind of dawned on me in that way. It's like, well, yeah, you could, if you really wanted to fix America, you can't fix America by policy. You can't fix America by paying off our debt. You can't fix America by electing somebody with an R or a D next to their name. You can only fix America by fixing families, by reinstituting the family unit. Now, there has been a long-standing government policy to destroy the family unit. Why? Um, because this goes all the way back to the 1930s. There is a three-volume encyclopedia if you want to go read it yourself. It is on the first piece of, they call it, it's climate legislation. So it's called Global 2000. It was passed in 1976 by Congress, but it was written back in 1960, and it was a 40-year plan to be able to deal with the crisis that was that was discovered in a previous report. So in the 1930s, the Ford Foundation commissioned a report on managing resources. Well, they figured out that by the growing human population, that there was going to be such a stress on the resources that in the future we would have resource wars unless we got the population under control. Now, some people misinterpreted control and population in different ways. But the purity of the report, like if you want to strip away the emotions and the preconceived bias, is that due to the lower infant mortality rate, it was causing the human population to expand. In order for the human population to balance out, to not put such a strain on resources that it would cause unnecessary wars, the human population has to balance out, just like any other population in nature, whether it be seagulls, whether it be fish, whether it be deer. Sometimes they get an abundant food source, they grow, and then that food source dwindles, and then you have, survival of the fittest. And this is kind of how the species evolved. Well, this was the basic thing that was discovered. And so the way that you take an idea and make it government policy is you commission a report. So that's what the Ford Foundation did, and then they have to talk to the government and go to the president and say, well, we would like you to commission a study because we got this study here. We would like the government to study this project. And so therefore the government commissions its own study, which is where the Paley Commission comes from. And through its own study, then it creates legislation that gets introduced and goes through the political process. And this is why it took almost 20 years for this piece of legislation to be ratified by Congress in 1976. Okay. And one of the main things that they wanted to do to be able to combat the population growth was to influence policy. And they influence policy with the unintended consequences that it wouldn't just reduce the likelihood that somebody would want to reproduce. Because if you create an environment that, it's like, even when my son was born, my wife and I, we sat back, we talked, we said, I don't think that this is a good place to bring a child into. Maybe we shouldn't have children. Okay. And so, when you create an environment like that through policy, what it does is it reduces the population in a healthy way with unhealthy means. But there are other unintended consequences, such as the day before or the day after my wife and I are talking about, well, we probably should never have kids. She ends up going and getting a pregnancy test, and we find out we got a kid on the way. So we kind of had to sit there and go, oh well. And so you've got broken people that come from broken homes raising children to be broken members of society, which therefore make broken decisions and have broken outcomes. And so then the inevitable outcome is um, it is a civil war, because it will get to a point to where people are so miserable and they don't know who to lash out at, that they will lash out at everyone and everything at the same time. And this is essentially, if you really want to understand why homelessness is expanding. So let me destroy the education and healthcare systems, the family will then destroy itself. I don't think so. Since my family dissolved decades ago, I have not experienced the pleasure of Thanksgiving. However, I loved the 2013 cartoon movie, Freebirds, about getting wee turkeys off the menu. Instead, pizza. That's funny. Four squared. That's funny. But okay, so how does all of this contribute to homelessness? How does this make homelessness um uh, the problem that it is, and the problem that's getting worse, is that it boils down again to the family. If my parents were emotionally unbalanced, they were not properly equipped to have children, they weren't in the right mental space to have children, they probably shouldn't have had children but yet had a child. um And so, in that time, in doing their best, not realizing the consequences of their actions, because uh, this is still something new in modern society. Up until maybe 20, 30 years ago, a child was to be seen and not heard. That's something. I'm curious, how many of you grew up in a time when you were told you're a child, you were meant to be seen and not heard? You even had to go sit at the kiddie table when you had people over, because the children were not allowed to sit with the adults. I'm curious how many of you were raised that way, but that's the way life used to be. The children were there, but they kind of had to keep off to themselves so that they could be amongst children, because they had no business being amongst adults. And so it by we are now just figuring out like all of the cause and effect, the things that we as parents do to our children and the long-term effects that they have. And so, for example, both of my parents, they hated each other, and because they hated each other and they saw the other in me, they took their anger on each other out on me. So what kind of bad habits do you think that that would create in me as a human being, as a learned behavior as a child? And how do you think that that would play out in my adult life? And how many bridges do you think I would burn until I would have no more bridges left to burn? Okay. See, it has nothing to do with, oh, you've got a mental health issue, you deal with depression or anxiety, or you got anger issues. No, it has nothing to do with it. It has to do with, I was taught that the people that you love and you care about the most, you treat like shit. Um, and that's not what you're supposed to do. That's how you treat people you don't like, not the people you do like. Okay. And to you, it may seem like, oh my God, I can't believe. But if your parents teach you the wrong habits, what's going to happen is you're going to destroy any safety nets, anything that could be there for you, even your hard work ethic. Because whether being an employer or being in leadership on a job site, or even just being a coworker of somebody, nobody likes the guy that just comes and is a total jerk, and he's kind of a I don't know, he's very abrasive. Like most of those coworkers don't like working with him because he's just a dick. And at that point in time, you're going to have a hard time even keeping or getting a job. So therefore, you become homeless. But is homelessness an economics issue, or is homelessness the fact that you learned bad behaviors, that the people that you care about the most, that you treat the worst, and so therefore you're going there thinking that you care about your coworkers and that you like working with them, and yet they hate you because you got the disconnect. You were never taught a healthy way. And so how do we solve your homelessness? We solve your homelessness by correcting the character defect that was ingrained into you at an earlier age, which is something that I had to do for myself. Which is, you step back and you start realizing, like, yeah, no, if somebody did that to me, I wouldn't like it. And yeah, I would think, and you start kind of learning to have a little bit of empathy for the other person, and kind of like walk in their shoes and realize, oh crap, I did this, I did that. That's not good. So, hey, what's up, Grandpa? The children were seen and not heard when I was growing up. This is Edward. Hey, what's up, Grandpa? But that's the thing about um, that's the thing about the way that our society is going. So we have a generation of broken parents who create a generation of broken children who are even more broken than their parents. And then you've got more children that are creating more broken children. Even though they're trying to do the best, they go from the extreme of seen and not heard to every little whim is right and correct. And so therefore the child doesn't learn right from wrong, doesn't learn self-control, doesn't learn the realities of life, that you can't have everything that you want. And so therefore you take the kid to the other extreme. And that's why you hear so many people bitching about millennials, because that is the other extreme. Is the baby boomers went from um, treating their kids like crap, and being disappointed because they looked at their children as something to turn out so that they could, kind of like people that have designer dogs and designer babies. so that they can go out there and they can look good in public, but they really don't care about the dog or the baby. They just care about how it makes them look. And so the boomers had a big vanity complex as a generation. Maybe not everybody, of course, but as a generation, this was a big trait. This is why they were disappointed and did not like their children, because they themselves were spoiled and then did not know how to raise a child, because when their parents came home from the war, they wanted to give their children the things that they didn't. This is why they say, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. It's because as the World War II generation is coming home and coming out of the Great Depression, they did not want their kids to suffer the way they did, and they figured they could give them a better life. So therefore they spoiled them. And then those children, because they're spoiled, their parents came home in the up and coming economy, which there was a lot of people making a lot of money and a lot of basically the kind of like how it worked in China. Everybody just kind of moved up really quickly because we became the industrial hub. We just come out of two global wars as a victor. Like, we had a lot of stuff going for us. We were we became the world leader, and so therefore all boats rose with the tides. And so those children getting spoiled and not really being able to see too much of the consequences of their actions like their parents did not understand how to raise their own children. Okay, and so we have this huge disconnect. And so therefore it creates this causation chain. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over generations, over time, until we get to a point where now it's hard times, so we can create strong men. Okay, and so that is kind of the times in which we're into. How did we get here? What is going to be created moving forward? And the thing is as the excuse me, as the world breaks down. So they're talking about Bitcoin. Oh my God, it lost so much money. This is the end of the United States dollar. You've got people creating hysteria about Japan and what would happen if they're talking about doing a mass dump. Well, on the government level, they're saying we're not going to use it as a bargaining chip, but it does not mean that they're not going to dump them. It just means that they're not going to do it as a bargaining chip to trade. It's going to be a bargaining chip to save their economy, and they're actually being pushed into this to where they may actually have to prop their economy up by selling all of their bonds in order to write it so that they don't tank themselves. And so the American people may be stuck with that happening. And with Japan being the largest bondholder of American bonds, what does this mean? This means that our dollars are coming home to roost. That means we've got inflation. That means there's less dollar demand on the market. That gives BRICS a higher percentage of global GDP or global currency exchange that they're doing. And so therefore, over time, over the next, maybe let's say 3 to 5 years, we could easily see BRICS become the dominant reserve currency that everybody does business in, or cross-border trades, as the dollar goes away. Because not only do we have like $38 trillion in debt, but we also are in the middle of a trade war and we're losing trade routes, and it's going to cause everything to kind of just come crashing down. It's not coming down like lightly, like a planned landing, like they were saying, or a soft landing. I think that this is about ready to go into free fall, and I think by this time next year, we'll be having different conversation. And I think that this is going to cause a lot of pain, and I think that we are going to see an explosion in homelessness, because of rising rent costs, because of out of control government spending, the loss of purchasing power, the devaluation of the dollar. It comes to a point where they can't give you enough money to be able to pay your bills. Now, there is something interesting that I've heard that Japan has done, and this is part of the reason why they are coming to an end and having to drop their U.S. bonds to begin with, or might be being forced to. Um, is there any chance I'm wrong? There's always a chance I'm wrong. So I never said I was 100% correct. I just said that this is the information which I have. But anyways, so what Japan did was a lot of stimulus, kind of like what we've been doing since 2020. But a lot of that stimulus has been in tax refunds and tax credits, but only if you have children. If you don't have children, you're being left out, which that's a large section of the population, because a lot of these younger kids are not having children of their own, or they're waiting till later on in life to have children. And so they don't get to be able to take advantage of those tax breaks and those stimulus checks that are going to people with children. And so therefore it's only helping a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. But if they start giving out mass stimulus, what it will do is it will artificially inflate the economy so that it makes it look like we're doing good. Because in order for us to sell bonds, our economy has to look hot and attractive. It has to be a supermodel. And if all of a sudden, our supermodel starts to age and starts to sag and starts to get wrinkles and gray hair and dimples and moles and buck teeth and a big nose, I mean, eventually nobody's going to be attractive. So we just keep doing plastic surgery, which is through the process of doing stimulus. And this is where universal basic income could come in. Universal basic income wouldn't be a temporary stimulus, it would be a permanent stimulus, which I think will backfire in their face. Because what Japan was doing to keep themselves and make themselves look attractive was to do temporary stimuluses throughout time to make sure to prop up their economy when it needed a little bit of help. But they didn't give, from what I understand, they didn't just give a monthly benefit allotment such as universal basic income. So I think that it may artificially look like our economy is doing good because you got people spending money, but basically they're spending the money. The government's giving the money, and then they're turning around and giving the money to the government. Well, the government says, "Look at our economy; it's doing well." Whereas no money really changes hands, and it all looks the same, except for the debt grows, and we're told we owe more for nothing really happening. So um, if what's to happen will happen anyway. The future is emerging on its own, anyways. Um, uh, for what I would say is, if you are somebody that's looking at the writing on the walls and wanting to survive what's coming, or you might be like me, I want to run headfirst into the center of the fight. I mean, that's just that's my deviant side. It wants to do something like that. Knowing this information is going to be good for you. So if you're sitting there thinking, you know what, I want to avoid this, I don't want to be caught up into this, how do I go and where do I go? Well, you know what, knowing what hot spots are coming and kind of understanding the cause and effect of everything that's going on around you will help you be able to better plan on how to be able to deal with the issues as they arise, should they arise. It does not mean that they are, but at least you're aware enough to where you have some sort of contingency plan. But that's just kind of where it's at. That's my opinion. But um, as far as everybody becoming homeless or everybody's homeless, I don't think that everybody's going to become homeless. I think that we could see, and I've been saying this for a few years now, is I think that when this full on economic crash comes, because it's like, here's the thing, it's been artificially propped up for years. If you listen to, what's his name? Peter Schiff. If you listen to Peter Schiff, and I think even Ron Paul said this, and a couple other like major libertarian talking heads. They said, look, they said this in 2008, 2009. They said, look, we could kick the can down the road. We could bail out the banks and so on and so forth. But that means what's coming is going to be 10 times worse. And so we should just let the too bigs to fail, let the power vacuum happen, and we will rebuild much stronger, much better, and we will be able to get out of this, and it won't be an issue. But yet the politicians, because when given the choice to dance in the rain or feel no pain, chose to feel no pain and chose to kick the can down the road. Because just like my grandparents would always say, I won't be around when it happens, what do I care? And so they're kicking the can down the road for their own personal enjoyment in that moment, in that time, without any regard for the consequences of future generations or posterity. Because what do I care? I'm not going to be there, and so it becomes a pain in the ass. Okay. I've heard, yeah, I've heard a lot of people, a lot of grandparents and a lot of older people, especially when I was in the insurance industry, you'd be amazed at what people think of their children when they sit down and have a conversation with you. Um, Even what you would think is a healthy household, they, I ran into more parents that despise their children than love their children. So anyways, living in the woods, gold. Friends. No, you need to be able to barter. You need to be able to barter in skills, knowledge, expertise, electronics. You need to be able to have stuff that people are going to need on an everyday, need every day. At that point in time, you will have the ability to barter. But if you have one-off things like, here, I've got an ounce of silver for 3 ears of corn. Well, you want to know what are they going to do with an ounce of silver? They need something like uh, um, I don't know, like wheat. Okay, so bringing them an ounce of silver means nothing, because an ounce of wheat is more valuable, because they can turn that into sustenance, which will allow them to continue to survive. Because a human's first basic instinct is food, water, and shelter. When I'm on the road, that's the first thing I think about is food, water, shelter. I got my water taken care of. I got my food taken care of. I got my shelter taken care of. I don't need anything else, or I can pick it up along the way. But food, water, shelter are the most important things that you need to have. Okay. Oh, yes. And cigarettes. But you know what? That's what gas station ashtrays are for. Um, You have no idea. I would go 2, 3 days without cigarettes. I come across a gas station, because people will leave 3/4 of a cigarette and just put it out and go on inside. You come by, you fucking grab 6 or 7 or 8 of them. You've smoked them all by the time you got to camp, and you're like, "Fuck, I gotta go another 3 days without cigarettes." So cigarettes, especially if you're traveling, cigarettes you can get over that, because especially if you're like constantly on the move, the anxiety and all the other stuff that you would get from the withdrawal from the nicotine gets played out in the exercise in which you do. So that's why when I was on trail, I could go days without cigarettes and it wouldn't bother me. But as soon as I got to a point where I was static, it was like, oh my God, I need a cigarette so bad. That as soon as I would come by, I could smell them, and I would just go by, and it would be something like that. So if I'm going to grow food, it'll make me a target of those who are wielding the stick. Those with the guns and stuff will want to control me if I'm the grower of the food. Not necessarily. Um, that does not mean that's not necessary, because I'm telling you, the average common human being, they want to survive, but they're going to be good. My neighbors in Concho. So for those of you that wonder, I own land in Concho, Arizona. I bought my property through the sponsor of this channel. Her name's Stephanie. You can go to her website. It's called openairproperties.net. If you use the promo code Friar Tuck, you'll get $50 off of your deposit. But you get it. She sells it by the acre. She does do bundles, but she does Arizona, Arkansas, and New Mexico. And I'm telling you, my neighbors in Concho, they're perfectly fine. They're good neighbors. They all help each other. We all have each other's back. It's something important. Even though I'm not there, I still talk to my neighbors. At least I try to. I'm usually too busy, or I've got so much other stuff going on, I haven't been able to chit chat. But I was able to connect some neighbors to some other neighbors, so we should be good. But I've got like 3 or 4 neighbors there that when I go back, I already know that I've got some people, and so on and so forth. Your neighbors are your survival. It doesn't matter whether you're in a city. It doesn't matter whether you are on land. It does not matter where you're at. Your neighbors are your survival, because, like I said, the family is the microcosm within the macrocosm. The community is a reflection of the family. So the family is a reflection of the community. The community is the reflection of the city, and the city is the reflection of the county, and the county is a reflection of the state. And so, depending upon how your community, what your culture is in that community, is the general melting pot that you'll get. But it all starts, just like the power starts with the people, society, everything starts with you and me at the individual level. If we don't hold ourselves accountable. So, if you really want to know my personal opinion, just as someone who lived the free men movement, the reason why Americans think they're free but are not is one simple or two simple words: integrity and responsibility. Those are two things that they Americans will have one or the other, but it's very rare that people have both. They will either have integrity or they will be responsible, but they will not be at both. And that is the difference between somebody who is free and somebody who is not. Because you're free in your thinking and the way in which you conduct yourself, because you spend time on your content of character. So you've earned people's respect. That you have they believe that that you have integrity, and they'll believe, and they'll follow through with you, and they will trust you, and you'll have doors open to you. And plus, if you're responsible in the things in which you do, and you exercise self-control, because self-control or responsibility is part of integrity in some ways. And so therefore, that is why the average American isn't free, is because we're too busy shirking responsibility for instant gratification, for the illusion that I can do whatever I want whenever I want without consequences, which is completely against the idea of what freedom is. Freedom is the ability to manage yourself and your affairs, but you also have the ability, thanks SpongeBob, you also have the ability to um you manage you manage your own affairs. So sorry, that was makes sense about the time to make good neighbors, those individuals front tough. Okay, about to be homeless for the first time next couple of days. Any advice? Okay, are you doing urban, or are you doing traveling? Like, a lot of it has to do. Here's the best advice I'll give you. Okay. Um when it comes to it, understand that if you want to survive and be able to go anywhere and do anything, you have to have a strong character. The reason why people never point the finger at me when something comes up missing is because I give them no reason to think that I want their stuff. They offer me stuff and I turn it down. They leave their stuff around me, I never take it. So when something comes up missing, why would they ever look at me? Okay. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I don't lie about anyone. I don't make stuff up about anyone. I do not, there are certain requirements to be able to have a strong content of character. Because the thing is people don't have to like you. I had a guy once tell me, it's like, I absolutely hate your guts. If it wasn't for the fact that you were fair, I would beat your ass. Because the thing is I was an asshole to him, but I always treated him fairly, and I treated him with respect. But I still stood the line and refused to allow him to have his way. So there was a mutual respect, because I treated the guy with fairness. Okay. And fairness means you take what belongs to you. You honor your deals. You don't take anything outside of what belongs to you. You don't try and get things outside of what belongs to you. Okay. If you only worry about what belongs to you, nobody else will bother you. It's when you start wanting what other people do. It's when you start getting yourself caught up in the local community and getting caught up in the drama, and then developing friendships, relationships, and attachments with people that may be as more or just as unbalanced as you are in that situation. And so therefore, being able to keep to yourself, to listen to your own thoughts, and to put your mind back together and to rebalance, is going to be the key to you either having a positive experience or a negative experience. It's either an opportunity to learn, to correct, and to turn over a new leaf and become a new human being, or you can hold on to the past, want something that you never had to begin with, and live the rest of your life in self misery and self guilt, wanting something that you're probably never going to get again. Okay. That's my advice to you, if you're going to be homeless in the next couple of days. Mm. So, I'm facing my first foray into the criminal justice system, but since it's my first offense, I'll most likely get a plea bargain. Hopefully, they'll take it easy on me, especially being in a blue state. I would warn against it. See, I thought the same thing when I went to jail, uh, and I thought, "Oh, I'll plea out. It'll be fine." It was the dumbest mistake I ever did. I wish I would have stayed. But here's the thing. If they would have convicted me, my time in jail would have been 1 year. The maximum time for a speedy trial is 1 year. So they can drag their feet all the way up until a year and drop the charges, and still you suffer the consequences of a conviction without ever getting convicted. So this is how they strong arm you. They strong arm you because they can keep you in there until you capitulate. Okay, and the thing is you've got to be stronger than them. If what you did, is not a crime, because I know what I did was not a crime. It does it No, it was not a crime. But if you think that what you did is wrong, then have a negotiation with the district attorney. Don't let your public pretender do it. You do it with yourself. You tell them that you're willing to admit, but these are the terms that you're willing to accept, and it makes it easy on everyone, and they generally capitulate. Okay. But the thing is if you're willing to admit and work with them, you'll pretty much get everything you want. But if you choose to fight against it, they will make it as hard as possible. For me, what they wanted me to do was to plea out. They did not want me to stand and fight it, because they have like a 95% conviction rate, but the 5% of losses that they have, 90% of them come from trials, because they can't, most of the charges and stuff don't hold up in the court of law, or do not hold up in general. That's why they want you to please, because they know that if they can convince you to admit to guilt of something that you may not be necessarily guilty of, that therefore they get what they want and none the wiser. So, pity share. I've got a nice quiet spot. There's a few people, a small group of 5 people. Okay. Thanks, Tuck. There's probation without entering a plea that I'm looking at. Yeah, you'll enter in no contest. They'll give you probably, like, they gave me 3 years unsupervised probation, because, like, I've never had a charge on my record since or before. And but the thing is that it was the dumbest thing, because it closed so many doors. There are things that I am trained to do that I can no longer do, because that one charge, because it wasn't even it was a crime, it was a way in which they labeled it that made it something it wasn't. So my son has chosen to go to a jury hearing. Well, you know what? A jury hearing might do good. But you also got to realize that all crimes are commercial. There is a penal sum attached to it. That's where the fines and all this other stuff comes through. Even you being locked up in jail, you are basically on deposit when it comes to how the criminal justice system sees you. Okay, so if all crimes are commercial, um, so entering a jury. So sorry, probation without entering. I've chosen a jury hearing. So yes, if all crimes are commercial, it's just um, fuck. I forgot where I was going with that. My brain's been all over the place. I haven't been sleeping well the last few nights, so sometimes I miss where I was going, missing that train of thought. But yes, all crimes are commercial. That is, what's his name? Clarence Thomas said that in his confirmation hearing before Congress. He's innocent? Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. I remember what we're talking about now. Okay. So all crimes are commercial. Okay. So that means when they get a conviction, that means that what they're going to do is they're going to take that charge and take the penal sum, and they're going to put a municipal bond out there on the market, and they're going to sell it as bonds in their portfolio. And so investors come and buy it, and that's actually how they fund the system. Okay. So when a judge makes a decision, or when you have a court hearing, the public pretender gets a piece of that penal sum. The district attorney gets a piece of that penal sum, and the judge's retirement gets a piece of that penal sum, and then the rest of it goes to the correction institutions. Okay, so it is in the best interest of the public defender, even though he pretends that he wants to help you. If he gets you off, he loses money out of his retirement. So therefore, what interest does he have to not pad his retirement? This is why they talk about signals between the different the defenders and the prosecutors, because they're all in it together. It's just like Congress. So he may be innocent, but there's a lot of stuff. So I dipped into a poop. Oh, that's funny. Okay, all right, guys. So we've been going for a while. I wanted to touch base with you guys. I wanted to talk about some of the things that are going on, and just a little bit about my epiphany of kind of how the family is the microcosm within the macrocosm. Because if you apply the same structure of a family in every aspect of your community, you'll start to see the same thing, and you'll start to see how it just kind of, like, as it gets bigger, it develops a different hierarchy, but it's still the same ideology. So, but trying to get him for DUI blew a zero point 0.0. What are their means for keeping him, and how long has he been in there? Or is he out on bond? So I wanna find out what Captain Apana has to say. Um, yeah. So, but I mean, oh, okay. So he's out. So he's just going to trial. Okay. So that it's not like he gets to lose anything. Um, if I were him and you could prove that it was a zero point 0, is that even what the if that's what the police report says, then I would countersue, and I would attach it to the officer's bond for a wrongful arrest. Um, so therefore, you can actually ask at the when you go to the hearing to have it to petition to have it dismissed. Because I mean, if it's a zero point 0 and they have no, they've proven that there was no his blood alcohol was what it would need to be. They had a technical instrument to measure it. If it's zero point 0, and he was sober and he wasn't under the influence of anything, at that point in time, it becomes a wrongful arrest, and you can ask the court to refer it to the criminal investigation division within the police department. So yeah, I mean, if it's that way, it's just a petition to dismiss, and it should be heard. What's up, Tomcat? Nice to see you, buddy. Well, about ready to get heading out, but I'm here in Missouri, and yeah. So, plot twist: he was smoking marijuana inside the car 10 minutes before the traffic stop. So just asking, but are you religious? No. I consider myself, I guess you'd call it a spiritualist. I see the universe is a living entity. I think everything in the universe is alive, even the rocks and the fibers. Um, and it operates on immutable mechanics. And so I think that instead of placing my faith in a deity that sounds more like fantasy, I'll go for facts and what I can see. So, is entering a probation without a plea my best option? Um, when upon completion, all charges will be dismissed. That's actually a decent. I mean, if all charges will be dismissed, if as long as you did what you did and you're not innocent, if you're willing to, if you think what you did was wrong, then that's a great deal. But if you think what you did was not wrong, then you're just selling yourself out for to feel no pain. Oh, well, is he not supposed to be driving with those meds? And you could get a doctor's note from that. So why do you require more evidence of things of court than spirit claims? Um, I don't. I use the same. I use the same evidence. Yeah, that's how you find truth, is through investigation. That's what the legal system is. It's a conclusion of the interpretation of the facts. So, I mean, I don't see where there's a difference. But all right, guys, I'm gonna get head now. It's I kind of want to. I don't know. It's the holidays. Oh, you guys want to see some Sam? Let me show you Sam. I gotta tell you. So I don't know if I told you guys. So I took her to the vet. I had blood work done on her. Oops. I had blood work done on her, and um, the uh, the Lyme disease is in remission. So she doesn't have Lyme disease, and she's got healthy blood work, healthy body, stuff like that. But she is about 15 pounds overweight. Can you see this fat girl? Look at her. So um but yeah, here in a couple months she's going to get on the road and lose all that, and she so but all right, guys, I'm going to say good to see you. Thanks for being here, and you guys have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving, and I hope that your holidays are the best.